Okay, we are live.
All right. I'd like to call the meeting to order and acknowledge that we are in Treaty 1 territory, the home and traditional lands of Anishinaabe, Ojibwe, Innu, Cree, and Dakota peoples, and in the national homeland of the Red River Métis. Our drinking water comes from Shoal Lake 40 First Nation and Treaty 3 territory. My name is Neil Harden. I'm chairing today's panel. With me in the room is Carrie Linklater, and via Zoom is Bill Moretsky. The assessor today is Roddy Pontantia, and the recording secretary is Stephen Lund. To the Zoom participants of the hearing, please note you are placed in the waiting room until your property is called upon. When it is your turn, you will be admitted into the meeting. Kindly follow along in the City of Winnipeg's Border Vision YouTube channel for the hearing process. Once the host admits you into the hearing, please close or mute your YouTube player. You will then be permitted to speak with respect to your property. Once your hearing has concluded, you can leave the meeting. We will be hearing applications for revision of the assessment roll in accordance with the Municipal Assessment Act. The matters for which revision is requested have been described in each application, and we will limit discussion to those matters. The statements that are made at this hearing are sworn testimony, and anyone speaking to the matters must be sworn in. We advise that comparison of assessments of properties are not considered evidence of market value by the board. The board is appointed annually by council and is independent of it in the city administration. It makes its decisions on the basis of the evidence provided at this hearing and issues a written order to be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the board's decisions with respect to an application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board if the matter pertains to assessed value or classification, or the Court of King's Bench if the matter pertains to the applications of exemptions from taxation. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included with the board's order. With respect to the hearing process, I will confirm the points of appeal with your property to be addressed with each applicant following the swearing in. We will then have the assessor's testimony followed by questions the applicant may have, then the applicant's testimony followed by questions. Each side will have an opportunity to summarize if they wish. Once all the evidence about an application being brought forward, the applicant may leave. The process will repeat for each item on the docket today. The session will close after all the applications have been heard, and the board will deliberate in private and make its decisions. You'll receive the board's decision by registered mail as soon as possible. As information, all public hearings are live streamed, recorded, and will be part of the public record. We'll be hearing items 1 through 8 in our docket today. The first property on the docket is 866 Main Street. Mr. Lang, can you please affirm the testimony and the assessors and the applicant's testimony?
Mr. Assessor, please state your full name.
Roddy Pontanella.
Do you affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. And then Mr. Applicant, could you please stand?
I think you've got something wrong. What did you say? Main Street?
Sorry, Mr. Chair, what address did you say we were doing first?
Well, number 1 is 866 Main Street.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, it was rescheduled. I just didn't have a chance to update your docket.
Oh, okay. Let me just go on and see if it is.
We'd be going to item number 2.
Item 2, okay. So 800 Selkirk then.
And could you please stand? Mr. Applicant, please state your full name.
Ben Salnikowski.
Do you affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Is it?
Thank you. You may be seated.
All right. Mr. Assessor, you can proceed then on Selkirk Avenue, 800 Selkirk.
Okay, so the file number that we are speaking of is 22-416. The roll number is 1401-074-7000. The address is 800 Selkirk Avenue. And the 2023 assessed value had gone out at $360,000. And I do have a recommendation to make on the file.
Okay,
So if I can just guide your attention to page 8 of my brief. I'll give you a second to get there. And you
all
can
right,
see the original valuation that was on the property.
yes,
Yes.
Okay, so if you look, originally we had one premise, 3,456 square feet. We had it valued at $10.51 a square foot. It gave us a total potential rent of $36,323. We have model parameters in place, so a 6% vacancy, 3% expenses, and a $7 shortfall, which gave us a net operating income of $31,668. And we had applied an 8.80% cap rate to give us our overall value of $360,000. So I have made an adjustment on this income stream in 2 locations. So the first adjustment was made on the rent. So we now have 3,456 square feet at $9 a square foot. This gives us a revised total potential rent of $31,104. And I have put forth the model parameters for the for vacancy, for the expenses, and for the shortfall rate. And I did have a slight adjustment on the cap rate. So it went from 8.80% to 9%. And that gives us a revised recommended value of $299,000.
all right, Mr. Applicant, how do you feel about that, that recommendation?
Well, I don't agree with that. First of all, I don't know where cap rates, et cetera, I don't know what all this means. I know the area very well. I was raised on Manitoba Avenue. I know Selkirk Avenue, went to church there, got married on Burroughs. I had my photography business on Selkirk Avenue for 35 years. When the first biz opened, I was president of the biz for a couple of years. So I know what goes on Selkirk Avenue. It's a bloody nightmare. It's just horrible.
Okay, at this point, it's just a matter of, are you going to accept the recommendation or not? I take it that you're not going to accept
No.
the recommendation?
That's right.
Okay, then, Mr. Assessor, you can then proceed with more detail on your presentation.
Okay, so if I can return your attention back to page 1 of my brief, we can go through the property description, just a quick overview. So we do have the parcel use labels, a commercial retail store. We have an actual and effective year built of 1978. We do have a 3,456 square feet as the gross floor area, and that is also the same for the leasable area. If I can turn your attention to page 2, I have included an image of the subject property under question, as well as the surrounding neighborhood there. And then on page 3, I have included the pictometry imagery of the subject property, so you can see its location there and its orientation within the neighborhood. On page 4, I have included a north-facing view of the subject property, as well as an east-facing view of the subject property. Take a look at it there. And then on page 5, I have included some Google Street View drive-by images of the subject property. And this was taken from the 2019 map update that they had. You can see the subject there is I believe it's being used as a resource center. We did receive a mailer for the subject property. And we do have a sale recorded on, although the sale has a consideration of $1, so we won't put any weight on it. And I don't have any property leases related to the subject itself. So I have included some comparable comparable lease information from within the surrounding market region. Some of these comparables might not be exactly within as per the same type as the subject property, but it was difficult finding some reliable net rent lease rates for the surrounding neighborhood. So this market data was the best I could find given the immediate surroundings. On page 8, I do have the original valuation. So we have gone over this once already, so I won't go over it again in detail, but suffice to say that originally the valuation had gone out at $360,000 and the recommendation had reduced it to $299,000. On page 9, we have an income value summary of the subject property itself. So you can see how we arrived at the original valuation, or the original assessment, I should say. And then on page 10, we have some capitalization rates. So this would be just the 20th and the 80th percentile of the cap rates that have been applied to the most common property types within the various portfolios under the city of Winnipeg. And under retail properties, we don't actually have a commercial retail store column. So the closest we could look at would be the strip mall. As you go further up, it becomes higher and higher in valuation. And we can see in the strip mall that the 20th and 80th percentiles were in between the 6 and 6.8% for the cap rate range. Of course, this isn't a strip mall we're speaking of, so you can increase that, just for the type of property we're currently speaking of. And it would show that a 9% cap rate is quite high, as it is. And on page 11, we have some Municipal Assessment Act excerpts. So some of the standard excerpts that we have. And then page 12, and taking us to the end of the brief on page 17 is the income and expense mailer for the subject property. And that is my presentation.
Okay, Mr. Applicant, do you have any questions of the assessor?
Oh, myself, questions. Yeah, you're talking about comparable rents. These rents are Sargent Avenue, Strip Mall on Main Street, McPhillips Street. There is absolutely no comparison between Selkirk Avenue and Main Street and McPhillips Street. The stuff we're putting up with on Selkirk Avenue is unbelievable. You can't, there's no way you can compare the two. Like, it's impossible. You're talking a different planet altogether. The problems we've had there on Selkirk is unreal. I've had, I think, 8 or 9 break-ins.
Okay, this is a time for questions, not for your presentation. You'll be able to make your presentation in a few minutes. So if you got any questions of the assessor, now is the time to ask them.
Not as such, no.
Okay.
Oh, by the way, no, that building was 1979. Most of that building was built in the 30s, not in 1979.
Oh, okay, Carrie, do you have any questions of the assessor?
Just one. So you gave this property a recommendation, and you've increased the cap rate to 9%.
That's right.
So I'm just wondering why the increase on the cap rate for what prompted you for the spot?
So I don't have it included in the brief, but I did take a look at some comparable sales within the neighborhood. And the sales within the neighborhood were suggesting that the cap rate we had was slightly low. So I decided that an increase to the 9% range would seem acceptable for the subject property. But again, it's I hadn't included it in the brief, so it's a little difficult to point to exactly which sale kind of prompted me in that. But in a general description, I did look at the market data, and the market data did suggest that we could increase the cap rate by a couple points.
Thank you. That's all my
I've
questions.
got another question.
Okay. You had the question, Mr. Applicant?
Yes, I do. He just mentioned that he had data on sales with the cap rate, which I have no idea what the cap rate means, and I don't really care. There was absolutely no mention of sales in the original whatever it was that I received. There was nothing. There were no sales mentioned. all of a sudden there is data on recent sales. Where did this come from? Why was this this information not given to me?
Well, the information that I did as part of my review took place after I had put forth the original brief. Due to the processes within the department and the amount of dockets that I'm currently assigned, it's a little difficult to have reviews before the evidence exchanges take place. So a lot of my reviews, they can come from some data that comes from information that I look at after I've submitted the brief. So that's why it's not included in the brief. And that's why I'm not really pointing to any of that data unless it's asked of me as to how I concluded into an increase in a cap rate. I make no mention of it. So it's not that I'm speaking of it either.
Yeah, but you did mention that the cap rate, whatever that is, was increased. I'm assuming that's to your benefit.
No, as the cap rate increases, there's an inverse relationship. So as the cap rate goes up, the property value actually goes down.
Okay. I don't know what it means. So, there you go.
Yeah, no worries.
So I bit myself, but whatever.
Okay, Bill, do you have any questions of the assessor?
Yes, on your page 7 rent comparables,
Sure.
there's a address 402 Selkirk Avenue.
Yeah.
I would assume that is actually closer to the downtown center of the city. Is that correct?
I believe so. With the address being 402, that would be a little bit closer to the downtown.
Okay, can you tell me a little bit more about that property? It is you have a net rent of $14.64 for that property,
Yeah.
which seems to be not really close, but kind of in the general area there.
I mean, it's market data, so it's part of the when I'm searching for market data and comparable rent rate information, we do have it all entered into our online system that we have here, and then from there we can pull verified rent rates. So that would just be an indicator, but the recommendation that I put forward was for $9 a square foot. So by no means am I placing too much weight on any particular comparable. As I previously mentioned, like with the use and the location of the subject property, it's difficult to necessarily find a perfect comparable that would give us an exact snapshot of what the performance of the property should be. So again, it's market data. It's just an indicator. I mean, it's $14.64 a square foot, but by looking at it, it looks like it's a bit of a newer building at 1989. The tenant information that I have in front of me suggests that it's a dental practice. So the finish might be of a higher quality as opposed to the subject. So there could be several reasons why the rent rate is higher, but again, I'm not resting my hat on that rent rate. I feel the $9 per square foot rent rate for the subject is fair, based on the information that I have and that I've looked at.
And you couldn't find any rent rates right around that building?
Well, the problem is that Selkirk Avenue, as along with some of the other inner city neighborhoods, they have a lot of the properties within that location are owner occupied. So a lot of the information that we receive, it's difficult to verify if it's truly a net rent. And so that's the reason why some of the comparable information sometimes looks like it comes from a further neighborhood, because it's hard to actually find decent verified net leases on that within the surrounding subject.
Okay, no further questions, Mr. Chair.
Okay, question I have is on the vacancy rate. Is that a citywide vacancy rate?
That vacancy rate would be applied for retail properties. So that would be under our retail portfolio. That would be the vacancy rate. And that's a model driven vacancy rate. So it's just it's a blanket vacancy rate that's applied whether or not the tenants are occupied or not. That's the vacancy we put on the income stream.
Okay, so it's not neighborhood specific then?
No, it's portfolio specific to retail retail stores or retail labeled income streams.
Okay, that answers my question. All right, Mr. Applicant, you can give your presentation then.
Okay, as I started to say, you can't equate the lease rates on Main Street, McPhillips, Sargent. As you had mentioned, there's only the one on Selkirk, and that was the dentist's office. I know that the property I've got there, I've got, I think it's about 1,600 square feet or 1,500 square feet, rented at $500 a month because nobody else wants to be in there. I've had tenants move out on a day's notice. Nobody wants to sign a lease unless it's only month to month. I've had one that signed a 1-year lease. He was out of there in 6 months because he had 2 female employees. One was assaulted on the street. The other was scared to hell. I had 8 or 9 break-ins in December of last year at 753 Selkirk. First, they stole the camera off, the video camera off the front of the building. The next night, they broke in through the door, broke the door, cost me $1,000 to fix the door. The following night, they pulled the metal screen off the window adjacent to the door, tried to break in there, smashed the window. There goes another $1,000. And it was just endless. Broke into a van in the back. They even cut through my fence. I have a chain link fence here with barbed wire across the top. They cut through it with bolt cutters to steal a ladder out of the backyard. The van in the back, one of the tenants was vandalized. That tenant is on his way out. It's just endless. They knock down the gate. They steal the hinges off the gate. They stole the wheel off the gate that rolls the gate back and forth. Unbelievable what goes on. Next door, the house burnt down. It didn't burn down completely. It was burnt, had a fire, questionable, conditions there. The fellow walked away from it, literally. He moved to New York, abandoned the property. Eventually, the city owned it, which was good because they at least kept the weeds down and kept it boarded up. Then a guy bought it, or no, sorry, it was a woman that bought it, decided she was going to renovate it, spent some money on a roof, and started doing indoor renovations, gave up on it. Now it's gone back to weeds again. Another fellow bought it. Now he thinks he's going to do something with it. On the east side of the property, going towards Par, there is only one building that's inhabited, and that's the grocery store or so-called convenience store on the corner of Par and Selkirk. Now I don't call that a convenience store. He charged some poor sucker $1 for a little tube of ketchup that you get for free at McDonald's. I mean, this is the kind of environment you're living in. There were 3 murders there. Two last year, one, I think 3 years ago, right there, 2 doors away from our building. There was one murder, 2 doors away, one across the street. This was in 2021. Now, I did a quick walk up and down Selkirk, the 2 blocks between Arlington and Mackenzie. There are 72 properties there that I could count. Occupied are 29, 43 are vacant. Now the assessor's talking numbers. Well, to me, that's 60% of the properties in those 2 blocks are vacant. 14 of them were burnt, torched, at the back, at the front, wherever. They're boarded up. It's a bloody mess. It's crazy. It's crazy. It's crazy. People getting mugged. I'm repairing the door that was broken there in December. A guy walks up. No, my vehicle, my minivan is parked right there on the sidewalk, right in front of that door. A fellow walks up and looks into my van to see if there was anything he can, I don't know what he was looking for. He walks away, comes back, looks in the back window because the other window was smoked the dark glass. Now this guy's got something under his parka. I don't know what he was holding on to it. It could be a crowbar or a gun or a knife. I don't know what. Am I going to say anything to him? No way. If the guy smashed my window, what would he do? What would I do? Nothing. I don't have a cell phone. I have a landline at home. That's it. I'm not I don't have anything to do with computers or anything like that. This is what we're dealing with. Now, as far as the sales go, there are right now, and these properties have been up for sale for quite some time, several years, some of them. Where are we here? 779 Selkirk, 781 Selkirk. They're listed right now in the $140,000 range. 782 Selkirk at 165. 739 Selkirk at 70,000. 761 Selkirk, that's the one that's next door to ours, was sold by the city. I don't know how much. It was like 40 or 50,000. And this lady put in, I don't know how much money, quite a bit, because it was a new roof, et cetera, et cetera. Now she has sold it for somewhere, I'm not sure again, it was either $40,000 or $50,000. A lot of immigrants buy these properties. Now, they think that they're getting a great deal. Well, these poor people get suckered in, they buy something, and then, well, this one fellow, I was in the 780 block, I think, 780, yeah, somewhere in there. He spent a lot of money on a place, renovated it inside, poor guy. And a week later, put a new door in the front, new storm door. A week later, that storm door is ripped right off the hinges. Windows are broken. You know, these people don't know what they're getting into. There's a tiny little restaurant there, ethnic. The poor guy bought that. He didn't last 6 months. He's trying to sell it again. He's asking $300,000 for it. Good luck, buddy. I mean, you know, what can you do? You know, the average selling price there is about $130,000 from what I can make out. Don't tell me that, you know, these places are worth $350,000. No way. No way. I don't know.
What value would you place on your property?
You know what? I agreed to this last time around, and these properties have dropped in price. Definitely dropped. I mean, 140 grand for a place. Where do you get anything for? So, what it was before, we were talking about 753 Selkirk. It was at 299. I wouldn't go a penny below that. I mean, I agreed to it previously, and I stand by that. It's ridiculous what goes on that street.
Okay, so on 800 Selkirk, what price did you feel was fair? Or what valuation rather?
Are we talking, which one are we talking? 753 or 800?
800.
Oh, 800. Okay. Oh, sorry. That one was 252. And again, I would, yeah, I'm sorry. I've got two appeals here, so I'm getting a little confused.
Yeah, we're dealing with 800 Selkirk first.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I would stick to my guns on that. You know, at 252 as a fair evaluation.
Okay. Is there anything else you wish to bring to the board's attention?
No, I've vented enough, I think.
Okay. Mr. Assessor, do you have questions of the applicants?
No, I have no questions. I can hear the frustration in his voice in regards to the neighborhood, and I wish him the best there, but I have no questions.
Thank you.
Okay. Carrie, do you have any questions?
I actually just have one question of Mr. Fontanella. Going back to your brief on page 7 with your rent comparables.
Sure.
Which comparable do you think would be your best, given you got just the one on Selkirk?
Well, I mean, I don't really rest my hat necessarily on any one of those because I did put forth a revaluation of $9 a square foot. So it's a little difficult to rest, but I would say I went through it from the brief and from the comparables that I did put. So I'm only working with the comparable information I put in the brief itself. And in my opinion, that I found that the best comp in use was 1086 Main Street. And I know it's not within the same neighborhood, but it has somewhat of a similar use. Its size, I guess it's from what we have on record. I know that the appellant was saying that we might have an effective year that's not accurate. And if that's the case, then, then of course this isn't accurate. But in terms of the effective year that we had on it, in terms of its size and its relative size and its use, and that would suggest a rent of around $11 a square foot, which to me would suggest that perhaps we didn't necessarily have the original valuation of 1051 too much off of what I thought or of what the data is sort of showing. But again, I put forth several different comparable information. I'm not resting my hat on any of them, and I put forth a rent rate of $9, which is lower than all of them. So that'd be it basically.
Thank you. And Mr. Solanowski, you said that the building was not built in 1978?
No, I'm sorry, I was thinking the other.
Oh, you were looking at some.
Yeah, I was looking at the other property. Yeah, the
Okay.
building, yeah, it was built in 78 or 79.
Okay.
I apologize for that.
No problem. Thank you. That's all my questions, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Bill, do you have any questions of the applicant?
Yes, you had mentioned that you were getting rent of $500 a month for 1,500 square feet.
I'm sorry, that I was talking the other property.
What are you getting for this property?
I'm getting 2,500 a month.
2,500 a month.
And that's that's one of the government agency, Mama Way. Those are the only people that really pay anything for rent on the street there. I'm sorry, I was talking about the other property.
Okay, so then your information that you had provided to the city on page 12 of the city's brief, then is that your total income was 30,000, which you just verified. And those expenses that you provided got you a net operating income of 19,721. That be accurate?
Yes, I just spent 13,000 on a roof. Knock that down.
So that's for 2020,
No.
correct?
Yeah, I spent 13,000 on a roof and another couple thousand on air conditioning, but that was this year, so.
My question is that 19,721 is for 2020, correct?
Wait,
What did you make in the year before? You remember?
it was about, well, no, that was a little bit less. I'm not sure. I think I increased the rent a little bit. I think it was in 2020.
Mhm.
So it was somewhat less than that. It was like 2,500, wait, 2,500. I think there were 2,200, I believe.
Right. So what would be your assessment of this property that you have, that you rent out and you make almost $20,000 a year on? Would you say that you're getting value out of that property then, even despite all the problems that are occurring in that area?
Yeah, I can't dispute that. No, yeah. That's, I think, fairly reasonable.
Okay, but only 252.
Tenants.
Only worth 252, and that, if you look at it that way, is it only worth 252,000 then?
Tenants had also spent a lot of money on it. They've had windows broken, they've had their doors broken. So that's not, that didn't come out of my pocket. They paid for some of that.
Okay, no further questions. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, and I have no questions of the applicant. So we will move on to 753 Selkirk. All right, Mr. Assessor, you can begin.
Okay, if you just give me 1 second here to open up my accompanying documents. Okay. Okay, so the file we are now speaking about, the file number is 22-414. The roll number is 1401. The address is 753 Selkirk Avenue. The address is 753 Selkirk Avenue. The 2023 assessed value had gone out at $407,000. And I do have a recommendation to make on this file as well.
All right.
So if I can direct your attention to page 8 of my brief. And I want to start by actually saying that I never caught this when I had submitted this brief. If you look at the income report that was generated that I included in the brief, this income report is actually pointing to a value of $360,000. The reason why it's pointing to that value was because I had actually spoken with the appellant about maybe a week prior to the cutoff for the board revision applications to take place. And so I had a week where I had some time before the tidal wave of dockets started to be assigned. I had a little bit of time to do a quick review on this property. And so that value that you see there of $360,000, that was actually my original recommendation to the original $407,000. So I do have the original valuation if you want to just follow along, and you can compare it to what it used to be there. So we did originally have 4 premises that were associated with it. We had the 3 storage premises that we had. And each one of those were generating the rent rates that we are currently looking at. So $6.90 for the first premise at 1,550 square feet. And then we had 3,341 square feet at $6.23 a square foot. And then we had 1,102 square feet at $9.32 a square foot. That was for the third premise. And then we also had a 4th premise that was included at the time. It was a basement premise. And we had 1,734 square feet at $1.38 a square foot. So we had 4 premises that gave us a total potential rent generated of $44,173. From there, we had the model parameters that were put onto the income stream. So we had a 6% vacancy, a $7 shortfall, a 3% expense allowance, which gave us an original net operating income of $37,032. From there, we had a 9.1% cap rate that was applied to this property, which then gave us our original valuation of $407,000. So that was the original valuation that was on the subject property. The valuation that you're looking at in my brief, that was the original adjusted valuation. And so that valuation had, the revised valuation had seen an increase in the cap rate by, I guess it's a 0.05%, so up to 9.15 from 9.1%. And I had also removed the basement premise. So I took away the valuation on the basement. And by doing that, and then applying the model parameters of 6%, 3%, $7 shortfall, and then applying the slightly revised cap rate, it gave us a recommended amount of $360,000. Okay, so having said that, I actually had a little bit of time leading up to this hearing. So I actually have another slightly different recommendation from the one that you see in the brief. And so this would be my final recommendation that I'm going to rest my hat on. So I apologize for this long-winded journey through these income streams, but it was a little confusing how it kind of got printed out in the brief. And so for the final valuation, I do have the 3 premises. So I still have 3 premises. They're all labeled C6 as storage spaces. And then we do have the original nominal rents. So we have $6.90, $6.23, and then $6.73 on every premise, which gave us the potential rent of $38,925. We do have the model parameters in place of 6% vacancy, 3% expenses, and $7 for a shortfall, which brings us to the same net operating income that you see in the brief of $32,974. And the further adjustment was an increase on the cap rate. So the cap rate has now increased from, I guess, originally 9.1 to the 9.15 to the now 9.4%. And then that gives us a revised value of $351,000, 351.
All right. And how do you feel about that, Mr. Salikowski?
You know, this feels like I'm buying a sombrero in Mexico. I mean, it start with 407, and then you go down a little bit, and well, no, that's not good enough. So this and that. And then I get a phone call at 10 o'clock this morning that we'll come down again. I can't even discuss that with my wife and sons before having to come here. There again, I just ditto what I said previously. It's in the same block, so the same things. I'm not going to belabor everybody.
Okay, so I take it then you're not accepting the 351,000 recommendation?
That's right.
Okay, so Mr. Assessor, is there anything more you wish to add to your presentation then?
I mean, I believe I've gone over all the pertinent details. I went over the recommendation. I mean, if we want, we can just quickly go forward and see some of the pictures that are associated with the subject so that we all know the subject that we're speaking of, or that the building the parcel, sorry, that we're speaking of. So if you look on page 2, you can see the pad eye view, which shows the subject itself. On page 3, we have the pictometry view, which shows the overhead image of the subject property. On page 4, we have the north and west facing views of the subject property. And then on page 5, we have the Google Street View images of the subject property. So we can see the subject itself there. We have received a mailer for it, so we're okay there. We do have a sale from 2005 on the history of the subject at $103,000. The market data, again, it was similar to the market data that I used for 800 Selkirk Avenue. Not the best data, but given the circumstances, it's what I could find. But with that being said, all of the rent rates that you see on page 7, they're not going to be factors, as the rents that we're using are actually very nominal rents. We're aware of the fact that the building is suffering from some tenancy issues. I had spoken with the appellant, and he had given me some information on currently what was going on. And so we do have them all labeled as C6, or in other words, they're labeled as storage spaces. And that's what we have them valued accordingly. And then if you look at the valuation there, the only thing you have to change is, as opposed to 9.15%, it'd be a 9.4% cap rate. And then the final value is $351,000. Page 9 has the income value summary of that we just spoke of. And then on page 10, we have our cap rate information. Page 11 is our municipal assessment excerpts. And then page 12 to the end of the brief is the 2020 income and expense mailer. And that is my presentation.
Okay, are there any questions of the assessor, Mr. Applicant?
No, I don't have any questions.
Okay, Carrie, do you have any questions of the assessor?
Yes, on that final recommendation of 351,000, do you have a revised NOI on that?
Well, the NOI would have been the same as what you were looking at there. The only thing that adjusted on the final value would have been that the cap rate was adjusted from 9.15% to 9.4%.
Okay.
But the NOI would be the same as what's being shown, $32,974.
Okay, thank you very much. It's all my questions.
Okay, Bill, any questions?
Yeah, just looking on page 12 again, the owner's submission for on the mailer for income and expense information. Just comparing it to the other property on 800 Selkirk, seems like there's quite a bit less revenue and net operating income on this one. Would you agree with that?
It would appear so based on the information that was put in the mailer, yeah.
And had you requested any further information on to why that would be, or
No, I didn't. No, I hadn't looked too intimately at the expenses there. The information that I received in regards to the subject was when in the phone conversation I had with the appellant about a month and a half ago or so.
all right? Okay, no other questions?
Okay, and I have no questions. So Mr. Selenkowski, you can give your presentation. Keeping in mind that we heard your presentation on your first property here. So anything you'd like to add?
Well, okay, these properties are all both in the same block. They're just across the street from each other essentially. So I'm not going to belabor you with my litany here. With regard to how much with the discrepancy in the income, yes, absolutely. There's a big discrepancy in the amount of income. The 800 Selkirk Avenue is leased to a nonprofit. You probably aware of Mumaway. They've got plenty of money. They can afford to pay a lot more. Now, the people that have been renting at the 753 Selkirk Avenue, they're all month to month, very mobile. They come and go. It's just endless. I can't keep anybody in there because of all the vandalism that goes on and all the stuff that goes on. I mean, you know, one's paying me $500 a month. The other's he's on his way out because there's nothing left in there. He's paying me $1,200 a month. There you go. I mean, it's no wonder, you know, I'm not making any money on that. But my sons they store their stuff in one of the units there. So that, of course, you know, that doesn't factor into the income flow, which is understandable. You know, I mean, it's worth something if I was to rent it out. But there again, I'd be getting peanuts for it. The maintenance is quite a bit more expensive because the buildings were, you know, 1936 or 39 and 60 something. So there's a lot more maintenance involved in that. Other than that, I don't know. I'm tired. I don't have anything more to say.
Okay, Mr. Pantea, is there any questions you have?
No, I have no further questions for the appellant.
Okay, Carrie, any questions?
Sir, is it currently rented?
Pardon me?
Is the property currently rented?
Okay, there are 3 units in there. 2 of them are rented.
Okay.
One at $500 a month, the other at $1,200 a month.
Okay,
The middle one is my son's.
your son's.
Right.
Okay,
So that's my income.
okay. And how much are you looking for this property? The amount? Because you,
Value wise, leave it the
Yes.
way it was. It was at $299, you know, 300. I would think that would be fair.
okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. That's all my questions.
There was nothing on the street that was sold anywhere near 300,000. I don't know where.
Okay. Bill, do you have any questions of the applicant?
So you want $299 for this one, and the previous property you wanted $252, correct?
Yes. Yes, please.
Okay, just wanted to clarify that, so I won't. make
No,
it cost too much.
252. Yeah, right.
Okay, but I've got my questions answered though, thank you.
All right, and I have no questions. Carrie stole my question as to what value you'd place on it. So with that, then that ends these properties. So thank you very much for your presentation. We'll go on to item 4, 1793 Main Street.
The applicant is just connecting now. Okay, I'm done.
You were
Done,
back,
yeah.
yes.
Wait, done.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a
Thank you
nice
for
day.
coming.
And Mr. Applicant, are you able to hear us okay on Zoom then?
Yes, I could hear you okay. My name is Gary. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you just fine. I'll just affirm you very quickly and then we can begin. Mr. Applicant, please state your full name.
Gary Glenn Quisian.
You affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Thank you.
Okay, 1793 Main Street. Mr. Assessor, you can begin.
You wish for me to begin, did you say?
No, the assessor.
Oh, I'm sorry.
He goes first.
Okay, so the file number that we're speaking of is 22-1221. The
Yes.
roll number is 1100-076-3000. The address is 1793 Main Street. And the 2023 assessed value had gone out at $430,000. This property has been labeled as a commercial retail store. It's a one-story property. We have the actual year built of 1922 and the effective year built of 1970. And we do have a gross floor area associated of 3,794 square feet. So if I can bring your attention to page 2 of my brief, you'll see the image of the subject property in the pad eye view. Page 3 shows the overhead view of the subject property and its relation to the surrounding neighborhood. Page 4 has the north-facing view and the west-facing view of the subject property. And then on page 5, I have included some Google Street View images of the subject property, so you can see as you approach, head on, and as you drive away. And we have received a mailer for the subject property, so everything's okay there. We have 2 sales on that are on for the subject itself. One sale was from April 13th, 2006 for $167,000. And then we also have May 15, 2008 for, we have 2 separate values with consideration of $158,594 and the sworn value of $200,000. And we don't have any subject property leases on file. So for the comparable rent rate information, I have included some rent rates from the surrounding neighborhood. So we do have some from Main Street, Shepherd, and Leela Avenue. And these are all commercial retail stores, or retail lease rates, not necessarily retail stores. And we do have the rent rate that ranges from $10 a square foot up to, I believe it's $17 a square foot on the higher end. And so for the subject itself, we do have the subject at 1,897 square feet at $7.23 a square foot. We do have a 6% vacancy on it, a 3% expense, and a $7 shortfall, which brings us the net operating income of $29,005. And then we have applied a cap rate of 6.75% to come up with our assessed value of $430,000. On page 9, we have a income value summary of the subject itself, so we can see how we arrived at that value. And then on page 10, we do have the spread of the cap rate information that we have. So we can see the city's 20th and 80th percentile. And then once again, we have to go to strip to have an idea of what the commercial retail store would be around. We have 6 to 6.8%. And then from there, we have the Municipal Assessment Act excerpts on page 11. And then on page 12, we do have the income and expense mailer information. And I will note that we have only received the COVID questionnaire returned to us. And that is my presentation.
Okay. Mr. Applicant, do you have any questions of the assessor?
No, that's pretty quick, lots to digest there. But no, I don't have any well, the only thing that was interesting to me, what does sworn value mean relative to the price that I paid for the property?
I'm not sure. I mean, the sworn value in general, the sworn value would be, from my understanding of it, it could be different as, for example, if it wasn't an arm's length transaction in between you and the person you purchased it from, but you have a sworn value that both of you agreed upon as market value. That's why there could be two separate lines there. But I haven't taken a close look at the sale questionnaire, anything necessarily to do with the sale information. This was just brought up when I generated my brief as the information we had on file.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know what that means. I bought it from an independent party. No
Okay.
prior relationship. I believe I did pay $158 for it. Yes.
Okay.
So I don't have any questions on that. I imagine if I poured through it a bit, I would, but not on quick glance.
Okay, we will then go, Carrie, are there any questions from you?
I have no questions. Thank you.
Okay, Bill, any questions?
Yes, the rent per square foot you have is 17.93, is that correct?
17.23.
17.23, you're correct. On page 7, you have rent comparables in that area and all of varying effective year built, but kind of in the same area, 70s, 80s, but lower square footage as well. But all of those square foot rents are less than 1723. What is driving the price up on this particular property from your comparables?
I mean, it's a model-driven assessment. I haven't made any adjustments. So it's what the model would have modeled, per se, for lack of a better word, at the start of the general reassessment. So it could be several factors. It could be the neighborhood. It could be the frontage onto Main Street. It could be the size. There are several different factors as to why the value has been shown to be what it is. And without having any income and financial information on it, it's hard for me to see what's necessarily going on with the performance of the property itself. So I can only go with what our mass appraisal system would deem to be appropriate. Yeah, should there be any adjustments there, it's that would be out of my scope of knowledge as to the subject itself.
Okay, but it does appear that that the actual rents in the area kind of contradict that model information. Do you not agree?
I mean, yes and no. I mean, we work on a mass appraisal system. We're not site specific to every subject property, so we do have to have sort of an overall approach to the to doing a mass appraisal. Maybe it's a little bit aggressive. One could say at 17. What was it again? 1723. Maybe it could be a little aggressive, but you know, again, without being able to see what the performance of the subject is itself, it's hard to then apply site-specific valuation when I have no site-specific information to even use. I have to just go with the information I have in front of me. So.
Okay, understood. No further questions. Thank you.
Okay, and my question on the rental comparables was asked and answered. So we will go with the applicant's presentation.
Okay. I'm not sure why you don't have the up-to-date like income information that I had sent. So I'm sorry for that. I did fill it out. I did send it. It was much like the prior year, if that's at all helpful. Nothing significantly changed. The rent charged is the same, and the expenses I'm sure had gone up, but all within reasonable range. I see how you're coming across the valuation. I guess you're coming across it as the value of the property based on the profits or the revenues that it can generate. So I'm coming at it from a different way. I'm trying to value the property relative to other properties in the area. And my valuation comes a whole lot different comparing to very near properties. One is practically next door, just across the residential side street of Kilbride, and the other one's down the street that has been, as long as I can remember, there's been a Shindeco for sale sign on it. Maybe it sold recently because that sign as of today is not there. I don't know, but when I look at the square footage of these properties, and I value it per square footage based on the selling price, it equates more to 300,000 than it does to 433,000. It was just 3 years ago that we went through this together, and that it was initially was quite a high valuation, and then it was dropped down to where it is today. I would suggest to you that the property is worth no more today than it was 3 years ago. Nothing substantially has changed. The building has aged. The cost of money has gone up. You know, I don't know what the cost of money was exactly 3 years ago, but I can tell you in the last several months, it's gone up a lot for someone that might want to value the property or purchase a property. That could only be reflected in a lower overall valuation of property in the city. The roof has continued to age. The rear parking pad has continued to age. The rent has stayed the same to the tenant, which I control because I am also the tenant. So that's maybe not too fair to mention, but the rent has stayed the same. And just relative to the other properties in the area, man, if I could sell for 433, I'd be out of here today. But I really think that it's, you know, I paid 158 for it. Certainly it's worth a whole lot more than that, but I don't think it's worth 433. And my valuation would take it closer to the, actually less than what the prior assessed value was. And my valuation, if you were able to see my two, you know, my provided information, my exhibits that I provided today, based on those two comparables, one would suggest it should be around 300, and the other suggests that it should be around 310. I took some liberties in my in my estimations there, but I think it's reasonably fair what I put forward. So we're looking at a quite a huge increased number for a North End property. I'm thinking that even the assessed value over the last 3 years has been too high. But you know, that's why we're talking here, is to try and hopefully find something that's suitable for all. I think that's my, you know, unless there's questions, I think that's my take on things.
Okay, Mr. Sesser, do you have questions?
No, it's nice to hear a little bit more about the subject, as I was kind of in the dark about some of the details. And no, I have no further questions. I can hear the sound in the appellant's voice about the sincerity of his evaluation on it. So I'm okay.
Okay, Carrie, do you have questions?
I have no questions. Thank you.
Okay, Bill, do you have questions?
Yeah, yes, I do. What was the rent that you received for this property in 2020?
It's $30,000 per year. I think it's just $2,750 add up. $2,750 times 12, I think is what it is. Let me just do a quick math here. $33,000. 2,500 times 12 is what it is then. Yes, 2,500, I believe. That would be reflected on the prior income statement that I don't have in front of me, but that has not changed over the years. So if I'm incorrect and it is 33,000, I'm sorry, but it would reflect what the previous income statement showed.
And that's been pretty consistent over, let's say, the last 3 years, that revenue?
Yeah, that has not changed.
And what about your net income?
I'd say it's reflected about the same. You know, because whether snow clearing in a year is 1,500 or 1,400, it's about the same. We did not do any big capital improvements might be handled differently, but we did not have any, you know, yeah, we fix the air conditioner every year and you know, the furnace every couple of years, but there hasn't been any extraordinary out of the norm, you know, other than increases with inflation and regular upkeep that will have happened over those 3 years.
Okay, so what do you think your net income was in 2020 then? Net of expenses?
Oh geez, I'm doing this from an off-site location because I have an open office with staff, so I don't have my documents with me, but
Well, that's okay. I just, if you kind of knew off the top of your head or whatever, otherwise, yeah. Don't worry about it then.
is that all right? Yeah.
Okay, no further question.
All right, and I have no questions. So thank you very much then for your presentations. That concludes the hearing on this property. We will then move to 525 Pembina. Okay,
Before you take a seat, I will affirm you. And Mr. Applicant, please state your full name.
Glenn Sampson.
Do you affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. You may be seated.
all right, on 525 Pembina, you can begin, Mr. Assessor.
Okay, so the file number of the subject we're speaking of now is 22-764. The roll number is 1202-010-4100. The address is 525 Pembina Highway. And the 2023 assessed value had gone out at $681,000. And I was able to make a recommendation on the file. So if you can please turn your attention to page 8 of my brief. Give you a second to get there. You'll notice that the value that we have under the income stream is different from the value that it had gone out at. The reason why the value is different is because we actually had sent out the assessment at land value, and the land value of the subject property was valued at $681,000. Under the income approach to the subject property, we do have 3 premises associated with the subject. We have a C2 standard finish premise at 2,214 square feet at $16.12 a square foot. And then we had a storage mezzanine space at 2,168 square feet at $6.34 a square foot. And then we had 2,214 square feet of a basement, and we had a nominal rent rate of $2.02 per square foot on there. That brings us to a total potential rent of $53,907. And then we have applied retail model parameters on the income stream. So we have a 6% vacancy loss, a 3% expense rate, and a $7 shortfall rate per square foot, which gave us the net operating income of $46,383. And we have a 7.4% cap rate that is now applied to that income stream, which gives us a revised value of $627,000.
So that's your recommendation then?
That is my recommendation. Yeah, it's the income value.
Okay, and Mr. Applicant, how do you feel about that recommendation then?
I don't feel that it's correct.
Okay, all right, then we'll proceed with that. Mr. Assessor, you can continue with your presentation then.
Okay, so if we go to page 2 of my brief, you'll see that I have included a pad eye view image of the subject property.
I have no problem with all that, with the view and all the rest of it. Just with some of the figures, that's.
Yeah, but it's his presentation now, so he'll go through his presentation. Then you will have a chance to speak on what you feel a evaluation should be.
We're okay to move forward?
Yes.
Okay, so on page 3, I have included the pictometry overhead view of these subject properties, so we can see its relation on Pembina Highway and on the corner of Lorette Avenue and Hugo Street North. On page 4, I have a north-facing view and a west-facing view of the subject property. And then we do have the Google Street View images from the 2021 map update. So we show the subject property itself. We have received a mailer for the subject property, and we have no sales history or property lease information on the subject. For market information, we do have rent comparables within the market region, and we do have them ranging from $16.85 at the lower end up to $20.65 at the higher end. And so if we look at our subject property, we do once again have the 3 premises associated, and we have gone through it already, so we don't need to rehash that all. But I would like to point out that the $16 range does seem to be within the range of the market data. And then under our income value summary, we do see a summary of the subject itself and how we arrived to the income value of $627,000. And then on page 10, we do have some cap rate study information. Some of the ones that we've looked at already today. So the 20th and 80th percentile between 6 and 6.8%, with the subject at 7.4%. And then on page 11, we do have municipal assessment at excerpts. And then page 12 and following it to the end of the brief is the subject income and expense mailer information. And that is my presentation.
Okay, Mr. Applicant, do you have questions of the assessor?
Yes, first question, do you look back at the assessed value for the previous period in your calculations? Do you know what it is?
If you just give me a second, I can bring it up. I do take a look at it just to get an idea of what the value was. However, with that being said, every general reassessment is a new reassessment, and as such, we do try to take a fresh look at the valuations that we do. But with that being said, I did take a look, so I was aware that it was a it was significantly lower than what the 2023 value went out. And I believe that was, I'm not sure that that was the model value that it had gone out at, but it looks to me that it was a recommendation that was made on the subject in the previous cycle. So that wasn't the model valuation that it went out at. But with that being said, it is significantly lower. You are correct.
Do you have the original when the model first came out back in 2016?
I wouldn't have access to that right now, no.
If I was to suggest to you and show you that it was $863,000, would that surprise you or not surprise you?
So sorry, let me just to get this so that we're on the same page. So you're saying that for the 2016 assessment that it was originally went out at $800 and something thousand. That's what you're
$63,000.
Okay, I wasn't aware of that, but sure, that would have been the 2016 value.
I wasn't aware of it either that it changed, and I didn't appeal it. But the next year I did appeal it.
Oh, I see. Okay.
It came out at $627,000. And it was appealed and brought down to $477,000. And then in the, as you stated, last year or the last assessment, it went from 647 down to 495. So, and now this year you've gone from 495 up to 681. And as I see here, that you've changed that from 681 to whatever it is now.
627. Yeah, it's because it had originally gone out at the land value, and I that's what the model has it valued. We actually have a valuation on there of, if you just give me a second, I have it here. So we have 12,380 square feet at $55 a square foot, and that's what gave us the value of 689 or 681 is what it had gone out at land value.
Are you aware that half of that is commercial and half of it is residential?
I don't have this split as such, so I would not be aware of that.
Well, it makes a big difference in your land value if if it's all commercial or partially residential and can't be made to commercial.
Sure.
That's my questions.
All right. Carrie, do you have questions of the assessor?
Not at this time, thank you.
All right, Bill?
So you have the rent at $8.17 a square foot.
No,
Something.
Sorry, are you talking about an overall price per square foot or?
Yes.
Let me just do a calculation. I don't have it in front of me there. Just give me 1 second.
Well, if
I have-
refer to it,
I-
sure.
Yeah, that's what I have it worked out as well, as $8.17.
$8.17 a square foot. Yeah, that's what I have it. That's what I have.
I thought it said that somewhere too. Let me just take a quick look here. Oh, it actually does not. No, I calculated it. Okay. So, again, that is different than the comparables that in the other direction this time. I was leading up to something here and seem to have lost. Oh, yes. Again, on the mailed in values on page 12.
Yep.
It says only 2,500 square feet total leasable. That differs from your 6,596 by a fair amount.
Yeah, I mean, what we have on file is what we have been recorded through, at some point there would have been a field foreman and inspection that would have got it. And that we have on files, we have it broken down into 3 segments. So we actually have the retail floor, the C2, and that's the first rent rate you see of $16.12 a square foot. And then we also have the C6 storage mezzanine space, and that's at $6.34 a square foot. And then we also have a basement that's on the subject itself at 2,214 square feet at $2.02 a square foot. I wasn't given any information as to where that necessarily would have been off, and it's not completely atypical to sometimes have variations in declared leasable area as they're calculated in different ways. But this is what we have on file, is we have 3 premises associated.
All right. Okay, no further questions.
Okay, I have no questions, so you can begin your presentation, Mr. Applicant.
have you got this, what I propose should be the proper income?
Yes, I believe that was received late, but we do have it.
I do not have the applicant's.
I don't have it either. I never received it. Or maybe I did receive it late as well, actually. No, wait, it's in my email here.
Yeah, it was received late. Do you have any objection to the late? I guess you.
I mean, in a way, it sets me off on a little bit of an unfair footing, and I understand that we do have, procedures and processes in place, and I'm sympathetic that maybe the date would have been missed, but truthfully, I received the brief at 1:06 p.m. today, so I've had no chance to even take into account any of it. So I'm sympathetic. If the appellant wants to speak to it, he's more than free to have verbal evidence to give weight to his argument. But I would ask that perhaps the board maybe discard the brief, just because I haven't had a chance to look at it myself. So
Can I speak to your getting back to me? My wife came in 2 weeks ago to pick up the papers that we expected to be able to get at the board of revision. And she spent an hour and a half and was told that she couldn't find anything. They couldn't find any papers, that they would email, or somebody from your office would email us. So she left her name and my name and our email address and our fax number. And we didn't hear anything. I was in town last Friday, or a week ago Friday, and I went to the board of revision, and I was told also that I couldn't, there was nothing available for me. And then I asked to speak to the supervisor, and a gal came out. I believe her name, I've got it here, but she was the gal that had spoken to my wife, because she said, say hello to Louise for me. And then she informed me that because the policy had changed, that I couldn't get a copy. And I said, when did that come out? And how was we notified? She said, well, it's the same thing, except one word is changed in it, and that is the word exchange. And in order for you to get some document, we have to have something to exchange for that. Now, this is the fourth time I've been down for appeals on this property. And this is the first year that I wasn't able to go down and get the city's information. So I asked her to give me your name, and she wouldn't do that. She said it's private. I could phone 311 and get the information from that. So I called up a fellow that I had dealt with, Arca. I believe you know him, but
He's a colleague of mine, yeah.
and he's no longer with yours. He's on the residential, and he gave me your name, Roddy,
Yeah.
first name, and then he said he would get in touch with you to give me a call.
Yeah.
And I phoned 311 and left a message to you to get in contact with us, and we haven't got any. We've not got a phone call, an email, a text,
Okay.
nothing.
Okay, did you have the city's brief in advance then? Or are you
No,
saying you didn't have the city's brief?
I got the city's brief when I walked in here this afternoon at.
Okay, well, if we're on an equal footing, then if that's the case, then we can look at it. Then there is if
Okay.
by the sounds of it, it sounds like there was some issues, and I don't want to seem unreasonable. So if that's the case, and
If you look at it, if you look at what you're proposing and
Sure.
what was proposed last year and the year before that, there's not a whole lot of difference. Can you take a look? So the first one is,
yep, I'm looking at it now. I can see it.
so the last rent was 1303 when on the previous one at 495. So that was 1425. The $4 for the C6 storage on the last was 350, and same with the other one was 350. Now you're proposing one at $2 and the other at $6. I don't know, why these things change year after year. The proposal vacancy lot is 6%. On the other ones that I've done, management was 7%, and the cap rate over the first one when it was 893 was 9%, and the last 3 years it's been 8.5%, and you come up with 7.40%. So I mean, so if you have a look at proposal, the estimated value after adjustment should be 505. Last year it was 495, or the period before, and before that was 477. And if I calculate in my brain fairly quickly, you're asking from 495 to 6, whatever it is, that's over a 38% increase or a 32% increase. I don't have a calculator, but it'll be pretty close to that. So any questions?
Okay, is that your presentation?
Yeah.
Okay, Mr. Assessor, do you have questions?
I mean, again, just due to the nature of the, I guess let's call it the discrepancy between the exchange. I haven't had a chance to look too much. I haven't had a chance actually to look at all, but I guess so. For the appellant, is it so the brief that I'm looking at, is this the 657 Patricia Avenue, is that the one that you have there for the,
Yep,
that's the one that you have, okay, because I was kind of confusing as to the address and then the valuation on it, but okay, I can see the valuation.
657 is a residential.
Okay, that's the residential component, okay. So, okay, yeah, so we have the 1425 44. You know what, no, I don't have any questions. I'm okay.
Okay, Carrie, do you have any questions?
Just a couple. So Mr. Sampson, you're asking for 505,000 today?
Yeah,
Just to clarify that? Okay.
actually, it would be lower if you took the model that he's projecting. But I didn't have his, but he's got a $7 shortfall, which is in the model, and a 3%. I just did this ahead of time and at 7%. So there's a slight difference there.
Okay. Sorry, if you could just explain to me, because I'm a little confused. I am familiar with your building, but just what is the residential portion?
Half of it.
And,
All the parking lot is residential.
oh, I see. Right, okay. Thank you.
And we tried to get it changed and to make it commercial. And actually tried to buy the property, which would be on the west, but the city didn't want it sold to be used as a bigger parking lot.
Okay. And you also stated that your previous assessment was 495.
That's correct. That was in 2020, and in 2018, it was 477. And then in 2016,
860.
it was 863, and I didn't.
Okay, thank you. That's all my questions. Mr. Chair?
All right, Bill, do you have any questions?
I do not.
Okay, question I have is how did you arrive at the rent values of $14.25 and $4?
Well, based on last year, the assessment before, it was 1303. The rent was 1303 and $3 and $3.50 and $3.
Okay, so it was just an increase from last cycle's valuation then.
Correct. So the 1425 may be slightly under, but the $4 is way more than the $2 that the basement is put on this year's basis.
Okay. All right, and I have no more questions then, so thank you for your presentations. And we'll move on to the next property, which is.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, could we take a 10-minute break? Thank you.
Okay, we'll take a 10-minute break till 20 to 3.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We are live, Mr. Chair.
All right, we shall reconvene and proceed on with 333 Ellis Avenue. And as a preliminary issue, we have the city requesting non-cooperation on this one. So I guess we have to do the swearing in first of all, so
Mr. Applicant,
go ahead.
please state your full name.
My name is Chuki Yang.
You affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes.
Thank you. You may be seated.
All righty, so first of all, Mr. Assessor, on the non-cooperation.
Yes. Did you want me to read out the file, roll number, and address first? As a
Yes,
formality?
enter
Okay.
enter the information then
Sure, as a
on the
formality.
non-coop.
Yep. Okay, so the file number that we're currently speaking of is 22-395. The roll number is 1305-285-2000. The address is 333 Ellis Avenue. And the 2023 assessment had gone out at $1,093,000. And as previously mentioned, we would like to place the burden of proof to be on the applicant under section 53B of the Municipal Assessment Act.
Okay, can you lead us through your evidence
Sure.
on that?
So I have retrieved the files that are, or the documents that are given to us to show that the income and expense mailer was delivered. And so on page 12 of my brief, I'll give you guys a second to move over there. So this document here is given to us by Canada Post, and this document is given to us when the delivery was received. In this situation, we don't have a signature on there, but that doesn't mean that it wasn't received. It just means that they received the parcel, but for some reason or another didn't sign it. And then if we look at page 13, the following page, we do have the Canada Post document, which clearly lists the dates that the parcel had gone out. So we see June 9th, June 10th, the item was processed. On June 10th, the notice card was left indicating where and when to pick up the item. It appears that the item went back to the post office and it was available for pickup by June 11th. On June 19th, a final notice was sent out that the item will be returned to the sender if not collected within 10 days. And then it shows that on June 22nd, the item was delivered. And then following that, I have included all the blank information showing the subject property and what they would have received. And you can see the address for the subject on page 16. It shows the address there. And that would be the proof I have in regards to the non-cooperation.
Okay, I guess we'll turn to the applicant. First of all, are you aware of the implications of should the board grant non-cooperation on this?
I don't really know what it means.
Okay, what it would mean is that the onus of proof would be reversed. So you would have to present your information on the value first. And secondly, should we grant the board grant the non-cooperation request from the city, it would mean that any decrease in property value would be deferred for 1 year. So it would have the impact of locking in the assessment for 1 year as it stands, and then a decrease should we decide on one would be deferred for 1 year. So do you have any questions of the assessor on his evidence on the non-cooperation?
Yeah, we just heard from what the assessor said that they for the Canada Post, but I don't think they may not receive that the correspondent.
Okay, is that the question for the assessor?
Yeah, but how if we they haven't received the correspondent, then there's no way we're able to compile.
Well, I mean, this would have been sorry, do I have a chance to answer that? That's a question?
Yes, yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we do have two mailers that go out. We have one that goes out in May as a first request, and then this mailer that went out in June as a formal request. And if you look in the brief, we do have the documents that were given to us by Canada Post, and these documents are the standard now. That's what they use to show when deliveries were made. So it can be in dispute. I don't work for Canada Post. I didn't deliver it to you personally, but I can only go on the documents that we have on file. And the documents do show that we don't have a mailer on file for the subject. So I can't really speak to it beyond that, Mr. Chair. I can only speak to the information that we receive from Canada Post.
All right. Do you have any more questions, Mr. Applicant, on the city's evidence on non-cooperation?
It's not really any more question.
Okay, Carrie, do you have any questions on the non-co-op?
Yes, Mr. Pontanilla, is there any, doesn't seem to, I'm looking at page 12, there doesn't seem to be any indication of what the address would be that it was sent to?
There isn't, but if you look at the item number, that LP 57786, that should carry forward. It carries forward onto the accompanying document on page 13. And then I believe that's actually associated with, if we go to page, let me just make sure that those are associated there, the LP, yeah, LP 57. So that same LP number, if you look on page 16 of my brief, you will see the owner's name at the top, and then just above the owner's name under the Winnipeg sign, you'll see that same number, that LP 578-617-001-CA. And that tag number is associated with the address that you see there, 333 Ellis Avenue. So if you can take that number back and you go back up to page 13 of my brief, that same number is given the tracking number at the top. So we know that they're speaking of the same document. And then you can show, it shows on June 22nd at 4:40 p.m. that the document was delivered.
Okay. Is this a reoccurring matter on this property?
I don't have the history of the subject, so I can't speak to that.
So you don't know if this was just like in the previous year? No? Didn't look like it.
I don't, if you want it, I mean, I could try to take a quick look, but I don't really have that information on hand.
No, it looks like it was received in 2019.
Right. Oh, if you're looking at the brief itself, okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay. Thank you. That's all my questions, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Bill, do you have any questions on the non-co-op?
Yeah, on page 12, regarding the signature, so is it the standard procedure for Canada Post to get a signature or not get a signature or try to get a signature? Can you elaborate on that?
So this, again, this information has only been relayed to me from my my senior management, as obviously I don't work for Canada Post, but my understanding of it is that the procedure in place now, it just guarantees that the parcel was delivered, but it doesn't, there isn't a requirement for a signature. I'm not really sure why they changed their policy on that, but they deliver the parcel now with or without signature. If the parcel is delivered, it'll show there that it was delivered. So I guess maybe requiring a signature, I don't know. I can't speak to that. It would just be a conjecture for me to say anything.
Mr. Chair, we are not allowed to ask the applicant a question on this matter at this point?
Well, he will give his response to the non-co-op, and then we'll be able to question him at that point.
Okay. Then I have no further questions.
Okay, and I have no questions on that. So, Mr. Applicant, you, on the non-cooperation, you can present your evidence on that.
Oh, sorry. Like regarding the post office, because I'm not there personally, so I don't know exactly what happened. If usually somebody deliver a registered mail and important mail, they will signature sign for sure. Like in the case, I don't know they really had delivered to us or not, because like I could ask the people, because it's a restaurant and there is not a it's not the public owner of the building, they just rent it, so they may not receive it first, or second they receive it, maybe discarding that it's not their mail. There's possibility, but you sometimes they just put it aside and forget it. There's other possibility. And like you say that we had that in 2019 that we did receive them, and that year we did appeal for the assessment of that for that year also. So I guess that's all I can say.
Okay. Mr. Pontantilla, is there any questions that you have?
No, I have no questions.
All right, Carrie, any questions of the applicant?
Okay, so sir, you're not the owner, you're not working at the restaurant yourself.
Yes.
You are working. at the
No,
restaurant.
I'm not working in a restaurant. I'm
No.
the representative because he's the interpreter.
Okay,
Okay.
okay. So if this was delivered to the restaurant, then the people who are renting it would have received it.
If they receive them.
No further questions. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Bill, any questions?
So then, the owner did not receive the notices because they do not live there at 333 Ellis? Is that what you're saying?
Yes,
Can I go back to the assessor, Mr. Chair?
Yes, you can.
So, Mr. Assessor, have you affirmed that that mail actually went to the owner and not the tenant?
Well, I'm reacting to the information that's given to me. So, I mean, it shows that it was delivered to the address that we have on file associated. I mean, that's as far as we can go, right? If the address is on file associated with the owner as to where the mail is supposed to go, that's where it's supposed to go. So,
Okay, so the address you have on file for the owner is 333 Ellis.
it would be, yep. And that's the reason why they received their mail there.
All right. Okay, no further questions.
Okay, I guess I got a question for both parties. Is that address the correct address for the owners, for the business? First of all, Mr. Panatila, is that the correct address that you have for the owners of the business?
It is the correct address. And once again, if I can take your attention to my brief on page 16, which is the English version of the notice that we send out. And you can see clearly there the name of the owners and then the address that we have associated with it. So if that's on file, that's where we send all of our notices.
Okay, and that would include
And if
all that would
Sorry.
include all information such as assessed value and
Everything. And if they responded to it last year, I would like to add that they do receive their mail there because they responded to it last year. So
Okay, now, Mr. Applicant, I want to hear from you. Is that the correct address for the business owners?
that address is correct for the business, for the restaurant. Okay, but the business owner, the landowner, property owner does not live there. They live in suburban of Lindenwood.
Okay, but have they provided that address to the city?
That I honestly, I don't know.
Okay. Is there any other anything else that either party would wish to add on this before
Yeah.
the board deliberates?
Since we appeal, put an appeal for this assessment for 2023, if how come that there's no corresponding from the city assessment department towards inform us they not receive any corresponding from us or sent to what they are not we are not getting.
I didn't catch that. What was the?
Okay, yeah, the corresponding, since we appealed the assessment notice for 2023, and that's back in June, sometime in June this year, and the city assessment department had not informed us. We had not get any information from them until we got it on August 30th. So if they should have informed us that if we need additional information or information that we had to compile or to the city for the appeal, which we haven't got any income from the city assessment department.
All right, Mr. Pontia, is there anything you wish to?
Well, Mr. Chair, I'd like to say that we've been sending correspondence to that address for a long time now. And, had the address been different, then we should have received a request for it. And in terms of the, to update the address. And in terms of the appeal itself, once the appeal has been filed, the mailer that we're looking at is from 2020. It's too late to ask for a request then. The appeal has already been done. So I would say to the appellant that the notice that they should have received was their second notice when they received an official correspondence in the mail. That was their second notice. Once they passed that, that's it. The time is to respond has gone by.
All right, thank you for that. I guess we will take a short recess while the board deliberates on this matter. We'll get back to you in shortly on the board's decision on this.
Okay.
Okay, we are live.
All right. The board has considered the evidence on the request for non-cooperation, and we are going to grant the request for non-cooperation. The case law is quite specific on this. Once the city has shown that they have sent out the request and it hasn't been responded to, then that ends the matter. So we're going to grant the request for non-cooperation. Now therefore the owner has to give their presentation on the valuation first. So Mr. Applicant, you can begin your presentation on the valuation.
Can I go back? I just talked to my friend here, and he said that vandalism in the area is very bad, and the mailbox have been ripped off a few times. Mail have been stolen before, so that could be a reason they have not received their correspondence from the city. Okay, just when I'm talking on she asked me what's going on before, so I told them the department correspondent, and they say, well, they had in the restaurant because the mailbox was ripped off, and they had put in on the street, and they had to treat it and mail it back to the wall, attach back to the wall, and then that could be another reason they had not received their mail. Okay. Back to the property evaluation. First of all, due to the pandemic, the restaurant had been closed down for a few months during the last couple of years, and also the operating hour of the restaurant had been cut down because the income for the restaurant had not been there, and they asked for the reduction in rent, and they went the rent used to be $8,000 a month, down to $5,000 a month for the last couple of years. Okay, so income-wise, the income is not there for evaluation, and also the property assessment value of $1,093,000, and which we had appealed in 2019, which is around the same property value, about the same valuation as today. And that we appeal, and we get reduced to under $1 million. I think it was around 900,000. And because of the surrounding area, the crime scene, and there's a lot of drug addict, dealer around the corner, and people drinking in the area also. So it's also affecting the restaurant business. But the property value, we don't believe they have been increased. Like other applicant say, if you pay me $1 million right now, they would get out the business, sell the building right away without any hassle. If even 900,000 would take it. If the city offered them $900,000 for the building, the city could happen.
Okay. So what do you feel a fair value would be?
Well, I think there would be around 900,000 at this time. It would be a fair value because last time we appealed and we just, okay, we take it, we did not ask for the reduction on the appeal value from before, but now I think the value, the market value of the property in the Ellis area, Ellis and Harvey is going down in value right now. I don't think the valuation is there for it.
Okay, Mr. Pantilia, do you have any questions of the applicant?
So I guess in trying to understand the property, one of the things that was evading me is I didn't have some information is we have the property split right now between a standard restaurant and what we have considered a C2 finish. Can the appellant perhaps elaborate on the use of the building right now? Because I was trying to understand, is it used fully as a restaurant? Is it half a restaurant and half a retail store? Like what's the current use of the
Okay, the building is 2 storage. The main floor is the restaurant. The second floor is more like a storage now because
Okay.
not often it's not for business. It's just for storage.
Okay, I had a suspicion perhaps it'd be like that, but I just wanted to confirm that. So no, I have no further questions.
Because that is on the file when we make the appeal in 2019, 2020 for 2019.
Okay, Carrie, do you have questions of the appellant?
Yes, just one, thank you. Sir, you mentioned in your statement that the monthly rent was 5,000 a month?
Yeah, we do from 8,000.
What did you say the previous value was? 8,000? Did I catch that right?
The rent was 8,000 before when the restaurant was on the beginning is the first lease, and now went down to 5,000.
Okay, thank you. Okay, continue, Carrie. Sorry for interrupting.
That's okay. And was the restaurant closed during COVID?
Yes, yeah.
And what were the dates it was closed?
Oh, whatever the mandatory closing, they closed. Okay, and right now they usually will open from 4 to 3. Right now they open from 4 to 10 and close on Tuesday. They usually will open 7 days a week. If the law require them open. So at least I say 1, 2, 3, 5 months, 6 months out of last 2 years, 2020 and 2021.
Sorry, 6 months it was closed?
I would believe so. No, let me see. Can I ask them? Ask them if they know the
Well,
restaurant.
if you ask him, then Stephen would have to swear.
I have to swear him in if he's.
Oh, okay. I can ask him because he knows the restaurant a little better.
Okay. Then we will need to affirm him.
Yeah.
Okay.
You want to?
He will need to stand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They will inside.
Please state your full name.
Take a man.
Do you affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Hi.
Thank you. You may be seated.
Sorry, I have to speak Chinese to him. 餐館個生咗幾多人冇啊？有冇3門啊？幾時由開始COVID-19 病之後，
應該生咗3個月，
邊幾個月你記唔記得啊？
啱你政府要我哋3個月咗就生。
Okay. They actually that first 3 months, 3 months in
First
the
3
close
months
the business.
of which year?
即係但係咧就開會咧，即係開會咧就係鎖住佢打電話嚟嗰陣時，我哋
因為唔係你可唔做3門唔做生意嘅直情
做生意啊，生咗啊1個月。
邊個月啦？
就啱啱俾過我嘅
啊，
啱啱俾嗰陣時
邊一年啊？2019
啱啱俾開始工作嗰陣時開始過，我都唔知幾多年。
Okay. They completely closed the business in the first month, the COVID-19. And the rest they only take out was allowed. And they also locked the door. So nobody could come in until, had to make the code board pick up. Don't walk in, yeah.
All right, thank you. That's all my questions. Thank you. Mr.
Okay, Bill, do you have any questions?
I do not.
Okay, the question I have is when you say the total rent was reduced to 5,000, is that for the entire premises,
Yes.
both floors?
Yes,
Okay, and they're both related, they're both rented to the same company,
yeah,
same,
restaurant, yes.
the restaurant, okay. Now, did they, when they were totally closed, did they receive any rent for those periods?
呢3個即係就變租都係變租係嘛？ Yeah, I believe they received rent, yeah.
Okay, all right, so, all right, thank you. Those are my questions then. Mr. Pandatila, you can proceed with your presentation then.
Okay, so I believe I already read out the file number, but just for sake of procedure, file number is 22-395. The roll number is 1305-285-2000. And the address is 333 Ellis Avenue. And the 2023 assessment had gone on at $1,093,000. So we are currently speaking of we have it labeled as a commercial retail store. And we do have one building associated, 2 premises associated with the income stream, and it's a 2-story building. The actual year built is 1953, and we have an effective year built of 1959 on the subject. And we do have a leasable area on file of 11,780 square feet. On page 2, we have the pad eye view image of the parcel itself. On page 3, we have the overhead view of the subject property. So you can see its orientation on the corner of, Ellis and Hargrave. On page 4, we have the south-facing view and the east-facing view of the subject property. And then on page 6, we have some Google Street View images of the subject property itself. On page 6, we do have the request for information. And so as was previously mentioned, we did receive a mailer in 2019, but we haven't received it in 2020. We do have a sale on file. It was from March 9th, 2010, and it was for a sworn value of $800,000. That was back in 2010. For my market data, I do have some lease information from the market region. So we have some from Ellis Avenue, Kennedy Street, and Graham Avenue. And we do have a spread from $10 at the lower end up to $16.50 at the higher end. And then on the income stream itself, we do have 2 premises associated with it. We do have the C4 restaurant that we have as one of the premises at 5,890 square feet at $14.52 a square foot. And then we have the second floor, I guess it's the second floor space there. And we have that at 5,890 square feet at $5.69 a square foot. The total potential rent generated there we have is $119,037. And there was a note in our system in regards to the tenant information. It was brought to my attention that they were having some issues. I believe it was with tenancy at the time. So because I never received any information from the appellant, I couldn't verify it. But I did allow the 15% vacancy that that a colleague of mine had put in place on the file. I did carry it forward to account for what I believe to be the tenant issue on the subject. So you'll notice that the vacancy is over double from what the model vacancy of 6% is. We have it at 15% vacancy to account for the issues with the tenancy. We do have a 3% expense rate, the $7 shortfall rate, which brings us to a net operating income of $85,777. And we have applied a cap rate of 7.85% to that net operating income, which brings us to our overall value of $1,093,000. On page 9, we do have a summary of the valuation that we have just spoken of, so we can see how we arrive at it. And then on page 10, we do have our cap rate information. Once again, we don't have commercial retail stores, but we do have strip mall as the other, as the next step up, so to speak, in our portfolio. And the 20th and 80th percentile on that particular property type is 6 and 6.8%. And I will note that we have, I believe it's 7.85% on the subject itself. And then from there, I do have the Municipal Assessment Act excerpts. And then from there, I do have the information that we have spoken about in regards to the non-cooperation of the income and expense mailer. And that is my presentation.
Okay, do you have any questions of the assessor, Mr. Applicant?
Yeah, like you say that in before the rent was 8,000 a month, which is around 96,000 a year, which is just good. But since the pandemic, the tenant can afford to pay, so we reduce it to $5,000 because if we're able to keep the tenant there, keep them afloat at least, and that becomes 60,000 a year. Then we should be taking into account for the value, for the income value valuation.
Is that posed as a question, I guess, or that it should be taken into account?
Should be taken into consideration to determining the value.
Okay, so if I understand the question, that we should take actuals into account, well, I would reply to that I'm always open to look at actuals, but we don't have the income and expense mailer. I have no factual information to look at. And
what if able to you give you an income statement, rental income statement?
I mean, all that stuff is useful for sure. If I'd had a chance to look at it during the evidence exchange, or if I would have received it during the income and expense mailer request, I would have looked at it. I haven't received any information.
Yeah, like since we say that we did not receive them, well, I guess we could go to the city site, download that cushion that forms to fill it out, to submit it to you.
Mr. Chair, I'm not really sure of the question that's being posed to me. It seems more like conjecture, and I have nothing to add to that. I mean, I'm only going by the factual information I have in front of me, so I can't really respond to if, ands, or buts.
All right, yeah, the question has been answered to the best of his ability. So move on to the next question, please.
Do you have another question?
No, not this time.
Okay, Carrie, do you have questions of the assessor?
I have no questions, thank you.
Bill, do you have questions?
I have no questions.
Okay, my questions are on your rent comparables. Are any of these restaurants?
So if we go to page 7 and we can look, I can read them out to you. So 250 Kennedy Street looks like a restaurant. 594 Ellis Avenue, that's a restaurant. And the other ones are retail spaces. And then 1124 Ellis, that's a baking shop.
Okay, and do you know if there is any impact of COVID on the rents achieved in these places? I noticed the rents were, well, some were in May 1st in 2020, but and that sort of thing, but others were considerably older than that.
Yep.
Are these the actuals achieved, or are these the nominal rent leases?
I mean, these would be the net rents that we have after we take away all the recoveries. So any of the rents that we put in here, any of the comps in our brief, they are, to the best of our ability, vetted as triple net leases. So we can be fairly confident that these would be the lease rates after the recoveries have been removed from the lease. I mean, all the comps that we have here, they are all net leases.
Okay. All right, I have no more questions on this, so thank you for your presentations on this. So we will go to 221 Vaughan Street.
1 second, sir.
So what's happening?
It's done. You're finished.
Okay, so what would we see?
Neil, or Mr.
Yeah,
Hart?
you'll receive the board's decision usually within a couple of weeks of the hearing. Seems to be what it is, but it might be a little bit more backed up now that we're into the heart of the appeal season.
And so if it really doesn't help, if we submit the income and expense statement.
No, it's well, I'm sure the city would still like to receive it, but at this point, it wouldn't have any impact on this hearing.
Okay. Okay, just for another question is, so how many restaurants being closed for business since the pandemic? So the landlord is being charged to keep the tenant restaurant tenant afloat by losing rent. Otherwise, there'll be no rent in the future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hello, bye.
All right, the next property is 221 Vaughan Street. Do we have an
No.
applicant on that?
There is no applicant present.
No applicant present. Is there an applicant present for 1837 and a half Portage Avenue?
No, there is not.
Okay, well then we'll deal with them now then. Mr. Pandantilla, can you give us the information on
Yep.
that you have on Vaughan Street?
Sure. So the file number is 22-426. The roll number is 1209-369-5000. The address is 221 Vaughan Street. And the 2023 assessment went out at $247,000. And I did have a recommendation to make on this file.
Okay,
So if you go to page 8 of the brief, you'll see in my income report here that we do have 2 premises associated. We have a 720 square foot premise at $18.29 a square foot. And then we have a 318 square foot premise at $16.22 a square foot, which gives us our total potential rent of $18,327. Originally, there were model parameters that were put in place to bring us to a net operating income of $16,274, which then had a model cap rate applied of 6.60% to bring us to our overall value of $247,000. After the review, it was deemed that the rents that were being generated were acceptable based on the size of the premises. As they were smaller, the rents would be a little bit higher, but they seemed acceptable based on their sizes. The one place that I had room to adjust would be the cap rate, as a 6.6% cap rate appeared a little low. And so after a review, it was deemed that a higher cap rate would be more appropriate for the subject property. So we actually have 7% as the cap rate on the subject property. And so all other parameters remain the same. The only adjustment was from 6.6% to 7%, which gives us our new revised value of $232,000.
all right. Carrie, do you have any questions of the assessor?
Yeah, just one. So, Mr. Pontanilla, you're adjusting the cap rate on this building, and is that due to the effective age of 1960?
It was due to several factors. One would have been the age. The other would have been the apparent lack of much value of permits that have been put in. So it doesn't seem that the space has really been updated too much over the last few years from the information that I was looking at. And then the third would have been from some market data, and in particular, some sales. I haven't put the sales into the brief, so I can't speak to the sales themselves, but it did appear in the sales that I took a look at that the cap rates that were applied would suggest that the modeled cap rate of 6.6% seemed a little low. And so for that reason, it would seem more appropriate to have the subject in the 7% cap rate range. And so that's why I decided to apply a 7% cap rate to the income stream.
Thank you. That's all my questions, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Bill, any questions?
I do not know.
Okay, and I have no questions, so thank you for that. Then our last property is 1837 and a half Portage Avenue. Mr. Pontanilla, you can proceed.
Okay. You guys are all ready to go?
Yep.
Okay, so the file is 22-715. The roll number is 0702-039-3000. The address as shown in the brief is 1837 Portage Avenue, but it's also the civic address is known as 1837 and a half Portage Avenue. And the 2023 assessment had gone out at $805,000. And so for the property description, we do have a commercial retail store. We have one building associated, two premises associated with the building, and it's a one-story building. We have an actual year built of 1918 and an effective year built of 1935. And we have a total leasable area of 4,745 square feet. So if we proceed forward on my brief, you can see where the subject property is located there from the pad eye view on page 2. And then on page 3, we have the same image, but with the pictometry overlay on top. So you can see the subject property and its relation to the surrounding neighborhood. On page 4, we have the south facing view and the west facing view of the subject property. And then on page 5, we do have the images, the Google Street View images from the 2021 map update showing the subject property. As we approach it head on and then driving by. We have received some income information for the income and expense mailers. So we have received that. We have no subject sales history associated with the property, and we have no leases associated with the property. For market data, I do have a range. They are on Portage Avenue. They are a bit in a range on Portage Avenue, as looking for leases of comparable properties was required me to go a little bit further west on Portage than the subject, but nonetheless, these are market data just to show the range of leasable rates that we're receiving on Portage Avenue, and the rates look like they vary from $13 a square foot up to $17.50 a square foot. And then on page 8, we do have the income stream for the subject properties. So we do have a C4 standard restaurant at 4,225 square feet at $15.71 a square foot. And then we do have a basement premise at 520 square feet, and we have a nominal rent rate of $2.13 for the basement. We do have, so that brings us to a total potential rent of $67,483. And we do have model parameters in place for these subjects. So we have a 6% vacancy, 3% expense, and a $7 shortfall per square foot, which brings us to our net operating income of $59,538. And we have applied a 7.4% cap rate on that to bring us to our total of $805,000. And then on page 9, we do have a income value summary of what we have just spoken about. On page 10, we do have the cap rate information that was provided to us, or that we've provided to you, sorry. And then on page 11, we have the Municipal Assessment Act excerpts. And then on page 12, and taking us to the end of the brief, we have the income and expense mailer information. And so I am just looking to seek confirmation of the assessment of $805,000. And that is my presentation.
Okay, questions, Carrie?
I have no questions. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Bill, questions?
Just on the on page 12 there on the submission of income and expenses.
Yep.
There does not appear to be any rental income entered. Is that correct?
That is correct. It looks like perhaps it could be owner occupied, or for some reason they just never gave us any income information. So this would have been filled out online. That's why the mailer looks a little bit different, is that we have two ways of receiving the income and expense information. One is via letter, and then that's the familiar mailer that you're used to seeing. And then this would be the other version when the property owners go online to fill out the information. This is what it looks like when we print it out. But it's the same information, just in a different format.
All right, and I do not have any more questions. Thank you.
Okay, and I have no questions on that. So that concludes this property. We have heard all items scheduled, and this hearing is now adjourned, and the board will deliberate. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pontier.
Thank you. Take care.